Awesome. We've got 2 sections to cover in our last 45 minutes together. Hopefully, get us out of here on time. We might be a couple minutes over. There are 4 books in our Old Testament that fall under the category of wisdom literature. What are the 4 books in our Old Testament that fall under the category of wisdom literature? Proverbs. Wisdom. Not Psalms. Portions of Psalms maybe, but Psalms is kind of its own category. Ecclesiastes. Not Lamentations.
So there's 4?
Yep, there's 4.
Wait,
It's not
Proverbs?
Song of Songs. Who said that?
All day.
I'm excited for this section.
Wait, what's after Proverbs?
Job. What is wisdom? Wisdom is applied biblical knowledge. It's about obedience. It's about works. It's about doing things. It's the ability to make godly choices. And hopefully have a lot of fun in this section together. Couple things to be leery of when it comes to wisdom literature. First one's huge. Is please be careful of Instagram snippets regarding wisdom literature. There are a lot of great one-liners in Proverbs, but there are also portions of Proverbs that must be understood in their context. This is even more true of Job and Ecclesiastes. Job will get you really twisted really quick if you do not understand the main thrust of the book of Job. What's the main? The book of Job's interesting, right? Because what's the main type of literature that's kind of being used in Job? Yeah, it plays much more like a play, right? Job unfolds much more like a play, right? It's this person's talking, then this person's talking, then this person's talking, right? And it's this back and forth dialogue between Job and his wife and his friends. And the real difficult part about Job is we don't know what is good wisdom and what is bad wisdom when they're interacting until we get a full picture at the beginning with God and then at the end with God. So we've got to be careful with wisdom, not just to take snippets and throw them on Instagram. Please be careful with wisdom in taking them to be too literal. Proverbs 14 verse 7 says, "Stay away from a fool, for you will not find knowledge on their lips." Does this mean that Christians should never be around people that have mental illness, that are uneducated? Is that what that means for Christians? No. But if we take it too literal, we can end up there. Right? What's the heart that this is communicating?
Don't listen to them.
If you're going to somebody for wisdom, don't go to a fool. Right? If you want financial advice, go to somebody that's successful financially, not drowning in debt. Right? If you want marriage advice, listen to somebody who's married, not somebody who's unmarried. Right? So we laugh, and I'm going to take shots really quick. So
It's late.
yeah, I know. So dating, right? If you want to be foolish, get dating advice from somebody who doesn't have a successful marriage built on Jesus. If you want to be foolish, get dating advice from a peer that's never been married. Or get dating advice from somebody that never did it right. It has a lot of applications for the Bowling Green Church. There's a lot of dating relationships. But seriously, man, you want to be wise? Get advice from people that, man, they have the longevity to prove it. Right? Great application. We laugh, but we can do it, right? Especially with dating and friends. We just start talking like, oh man, that sounds really good. And then you're like, oh crap, that was really stupid. In order to guard from the Instagram snippet, get the big picture before grabbing the snippet.
Yeah.
And even in Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs 5, 6, and 7. It's kind of a continuous story that's unfolding between this young man headed towards this adulterous woman's house and sleeping with her. And man, it's good to have the whole picture before just grabbing the sentence. A couple notes for reading Proverbs. Proverbs are often parabolic. They use figurative, maybe even flamboyant language, right? So be careful of using them figuratively. Like if it's better to be living on the corner of a roof than married to a nagging wife, right? Probably don't take that literally, right? But there's wisdom to be found in it. My wife is not nagging. I didn't memorize that. My wife is pretty amazing. If there's anything, I'm the nagging one. Proverbs are often intensely practical and less theoretical. And this is true. I'm trying to think of like a proverb of our day that illustrates this well.
Oh, you're talking about like a modern proverb?
Yeah.
Oh. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
It's not, it's I don't know. I'm too tired.
I can't.
This is great. Proverbs are worded to be memorable, not technically precise. Okay? Look before you leap.
There you go.
Right? Memorable, not necessarily precise. Right? Should I look every time before I jump up in basketball? No, you'll never accomplish anything. Right? But something to be relearned. Proverbs are not designated to support selfish behavior, just the opposite. If you're using a proverb to promote selfish behavior or selfish agenda, you're probably using it wrong. Proverbs are not guarantees from God, but poetic guidelines for good behavior. This is huge. So when we read Proverbs, if we read Proverbs as commands, we're not reading them properly. Okay? Proverbs are not commands. They're models for how to live a life of wisdom. Somebody who wants to pursue Jesus and pursue God, are they going to align themselves with Proverbs? Yes. Are they going to do their very best to align themselves with Proverbs? Yes. Great example. There's lots of Proverbs about debt. Two Freiburg guys. The issue with that in our context is you more or less can't buy a home without going into debt because of the way our economy works, right? Does that mean we're disobeying God by taking out a mortgage and buying a house?
Yes.
No.
Josh, I thought you meant
We're not. But is there really great wisdom about being careful not to go into debt when investing in real estate? Sure. There's this method. It's called the Burr method. Somebody help me. What's it? It's buy. Oh.
What's the middle initial?
It's a bunch of R's. What is it?
Rent, finance,
Rent. No.
Buy, rent,
Remodel. Buy, rent, remodel, refinance, repeat.
Okay.
That's what it is. Thanks, man.
Close.
Yeah. But it's worked for a lot of people. There's a big danger to it that it is built on debt. It's built on a lot of people. What they do is they take a loan out against their house. They use that money to buy an investment property, hoping that investment property is going to build them more money, which for a lot of people it's worked. But man, if it doesn't work, now you've got two liens or two loans out against your house. Anything happens to your job, your wife and kids are up a creek without a paddle because you didn't listen to the wisdom of God, right? Now that's not to say doing the Burr method is sin in and of itself. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, man, there's wisdom in these proverbs, and we're going to do good to align ourselves with them, but we've got to be careful not to treat them as commands, okay? Proverbs may use highly specific language, exaggerations, or or any of a variety of literary techniques to make their point. Just be careful of taking them literal. Proverbs give good advice for wise approaches to certain aspects of life, but are not exhaustive in their coverage. Wrongly used, Proverbs may justify a crass, materialistic lifestyle. Rightly used, Proverbs will provide practical advice for daily living. Questions? No? All right, help me out. How should we read this proverb? The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but he sets the widow's boundary stones in place. How should we read this? What should we? Okay, he opposes the proud. Does anybody here know proud people that have really big houses?
Probably.
Yes. There's a lot of NBA players have houses in massive. Yeah. But what is this communicating to us? It's not a promise. It's not a command. What's it communicating?
Don't put your pride in your possessions.
And if you want to protect your family, better be humble, right? But what else does it communicate?
He takes care
of the lowly, right? And there's plenty of people that we know that have fallen on hard times that it doesn't look like they're being taken care of, but this is still true. God, he's doing something. He takes care of the lowly, right? So if we read this literal, it causes us a lot of anxiety, questions, angst. But if we understand the heart of it and apply it correctly, it makes a lot of sense. Good? Job, really quick. It's what they call speculative wisdom. So is Ecclesiastes. And it's wrestling with large questions about life and God. It's a play that's more or less wrestling with God's omniscience, God's goodness, and God's righteousness, right? In conjunction with human suffering, right? How does human suffering play into God's omniscience, omnipresence, and goodness, right? And we talked about this already, but if you miss, essentially the premise of Job is found in chapters 1 and 2, and then the end of chapter 42. If you get lost in the weeds in chapters 3 through the first half of 42, you're going to get so confused on what's good and bad, because Job's friends they're bringing up a lot of points and questions that you and I bring up often about God and his righteousness and his sovereignty and fairness and suffering, right? And, but Job, he has Job's great statement: shall accept the good and not the bad from God. But ultimately, God's honored, Job's vindicated, and his friends are going to be exposed. Like I said, Ecclesiastes is similar. Ecclesiastes, what he's doing is he's building a bunch of tension, showing us that all the things we pursue are meaningless or useless. Money, sex, power, influence, food, alcohol. There's a passage in here that's greatly misused to promote drunkenness and party. He says everything is meaningless, therefore man should enjoy wine and food and toil for that. That's the purpose, right? But it's what he's doing is he's saying, man, if you're going to live this style, just live it, right? But the climax of it is going to be found in the end of Ecclesiastes. It's all about fearing God, loving God, and obeying God. Man, if you want life, if you want purpose, learn to fear God, learn to love God, learn to obey God, which ties really well into the law and the prophets, because the laws are not regulations that limit our freedom. They're stipulations that enhance our covenant, right? So Ecclesiastes is kind of right along in that. Ecclesiastes, incredible book. It spoke to my soul quite a bit. It is a bit depressing until the light goes off in chapter 12. So if you're going to read Ecclesiastes and study it out, keep the end in mind. We're going to have some fun just for a second and talk about the Song of Songs. So when we're doing good exegesis, what's the first question we wrestle through? Exegesis is what? then and there, right? Song of Songs. The Song of Songs is not about Jesus in the church. Not primarily. Maybe there are some cool connections to be made about Jesus and his bride, but the Song of Songs is not an allegory about Jesus in the church. It's not. Why can we say that so definitively?
Read it.
Church wasn't.
Well, Solomon was 1,000 years before Jesus, right? 1,000 years before Jesus. That means this book had zero implications until Christ came. It can't be exclusively about Jesus in the church. Are there interesting tidbits learned? Yeah, sure. But it's not an allegory about Jesus in the church. What is the Song of Songs about? The beauty of sex. And it is erotic literature. Like, the NIV probably doesn't do it justice. It is graphic, it is awesome, it is beautiful, and it's something to be celebrated. And it's what's cool. Timothy Keller talks about this a bit, or did, he passed. And then Matt Chandler does a good job as well, talking about Song of Solomon's and sex and marriage. What the author of Song of Solomon's, we're going to read a chapter together, and I guarantee there's going to be blushing and chuckling, at least if you're as immature as I am. What's so interesting, the Song of Solomon, it's this back and forth conversation between a man and a woman preparing for marriage. And romance is off the charts, it's steamy, it's exciting, but it's everything that they are looking forward to in their marriage. It's everything to come. And what's so special about that is it shows the intimacy that's intended to be in a covenant relationship. This vulnerability, this transparency, this euphoria, this trust, this surrender, this giving and receiving and back and forth. And it's beautiful. And what it tells us is that God made marriage and God made sex. And both should be celebrated, but only in their proper context. Proper context is monogamous, heterosexual marriage. Right? And so turn with me to Song of Songs chapter 4, and we are going to read this together. I went back and forth about reading it together because it is graphic, but it's God's word and it's to be celebrated, and there's something special in it. And I read it as an engaged man and struggled a little bit, but it did help me celebrate what God had in store for my future with my wife. Song of Songs, chapter 4, we're going to read the whole chapter, verse 1. And luckily our Bibles, they give us headings of who's speaking. So this is the man speaking to his bride-to-be, and he says, "How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes behind your veil are doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats." I didn't know that was a compliment, but it is. "Descending from the hills of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep just shorn, coming up from their wash." Must be really white. "Each has its twin. Not one of them is left alone." So no broken teeth, no missing teeth. She's got a beautiful smile. "Her lips are like a scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like halves of pomegranates. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with the courses of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadow flees, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of incense. You are altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you. Come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come with me from Lebanon. Descend from the crest of Ammon, from the top of Senir, the summit of Hermon, from the lion's den and the mountain haunts of leopards. You have stolen my heart, my sister, my bride. You have stolen my heart with one glance of your eyes. with one jewel of your necklace. How delightful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much more pleasing is your love than wine. And the fragrance of your perfume more than any spice. Your lips drop sweetness as the honeycomb, my bride. Milk and honey are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. You are a garden locked up, my sister, my bride. You are a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. Speaking of virginity. Your plants are an orchid of pomegranates with choice fruits, with henna and nard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with every kind of incense tree, with myrrh and aloes and all your finest spices. You are a garden fountain, a well of flowing water streaming down from Lebanon. Awake, north wind, and come, south wind. Blow, this is the woman speaking. Awake, north wind, come, south wind. Blow on my garden, she says to the man. That its fragrance may spread everywhere. Let my beloved come into his garden and taste its choice fruit. Oh my goodness. If you don't know what was just communicated, if you're a woman, pull a woman aside, she'll explain it to you. If you're a man, come talk to me, we'll have the birds and the bees conversation. It is erotic and sensual and romantic and beautiful. And it's something that honestly, man, we need to celebrate, and Christianity needs to recapture, right? I tell people, especially when we're doing marriage counseling, is, man, the romance and the intimacy of Christians far exceeds that of anybody else. Because what you'll see in this whole book, it's all about somebody giving themselves away. And it's not in this idea of dominance and oppression and self-promotion. It's this service. It's this service and sacrifice and this beautiful dance of two people just giving everything to one another and surrendering and being vulnerable and transparent and open. And it's this beautiful, beautiful expression of surrender. And man, oh man, it's something to be celebrated. If you're dating, don't read it with your girlfriend. Maybe one day you can read it together later. Questions on Song of Songs?
Yeah, what is it?
You're married and there are the issues. We did not do a good enough job. There's a lot of red faces. This is awesome. No questions? Sweet. All right, everybody jump up, do 10 jumping jacks. Or something to just wiggle it out. We're going to go on to Psalms really quick.
What's the jumping jack for
You
those?
pronounce it sounds.
Alright, see who wins. First one to finish.
Just 10 of them.
Just
We gotta go. We gotta
Awesome. So we've talked about narrative. We've talked about the law and the prophets. We've talked about wisdom. We are landing this plane on Psalms. And you guys are still wide awake. So I originally was going to do wisdom at the end, but I was like, man, Song of Psalms might wake people up a little bit. So I put that in there, and we're doing Psalms at the end. Psalms, it's about praying to an all-knowing God. The unique thing about Psalms is these are words spoken to God and or about God and are from people. So the important thing about this is because they're spoken from people to God, it doesn't always mean that the prayers are righteous. It doesn't always mean that the people's hearts are in a good place, right? But what they do teach us is how to wrestle honestly with our Father. And they're amazing and special, and probably the most popular Old Testament book, right? Is there anybody who was ever given one of those like pocket New Testaments in college? What was also in it?
The Psalms.
Psalms. Yep. Some of the Proverbs. Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty popular. Couple notes. How are we to read Psalm? Read them as poetry. But there's also different types of poetry in literature, and we'll get into those here in a second. I don't know if I have a slide on this, but Psalms, the cool thing about Psalms is they much more about speaking to the emotions of people than necessarily not intelligence, but it's way more about grabbing our hearts and our emotions than it is necessarily about our minds, right? Which is even true of music, right? The reason we sit around and we listen to music is it stirs up feelings that we can relate to, and that should be true of the Psalms as well. Different types of Psalms, laments, the book of Lamentations, right? Probably falls in this. Thanksgiving, hymns of praise, salvation history, celebration, affirmation, wisdoms, and songs of trust. Maybe a really good slide to take a picture of. I'm going to step aside because I think there's a lot of wisdom found in these. Maybe you're going through a difficult time in life and you want a psalm to pray through, a lamentation, a lament would be good. 3:12, 120, 136, those are just different psalms of lamenting. To lament is expressing deep, honest fervor, the distresses God's people felt. It's the largest group of psalms. Thanksgivings, gratitude, feelings of gratefulness. Hymns of praise. One of my favorite psalms, Psalm 103, which is all about just celebrating God for who He is, right? Who separates our sin as far as the east is from the west, whose love for us stretches as high as the heavens are above the earth. It's just about praising God for who He is. A lot of the songs we sing are hymn praises, modern hymn praises. Salvation history, they're kind of reviewing the history of God's people, right? A lot of them probably focus on the Exodus, and their songs kind of rejoicing about the Exodus. Wisdom psalms, and then psalms of trust or surrender. Proverbs 23 is a great one there, right? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me besides quiet waters is a great one. But one of my favorite things to do with psalms is writing my own psalm. Maybe life's going great and I want to write a psalm of thanksgiving or a psalm of praise. Or maybe life's really hard. It's just slowing down enough to get my heart on paper and giving God an honest lament and wrestling with God. And you'll read through Psalms and man, there's some that are just so relatable, right? We see depression, we see anxiety popping out of some of these Psalms. They're definitely really special. And if you struggle in your prayer life, man, pray through some Psalms. And maybe even make it a part of your quiet time as you're studying out Luke, and then at the end you spend 15 minutes reading through a Psalm and praying through that Psalm. Psalms definitely have different kind of formats that they follow. This format here is the typical path that laments follow.
We, the Bowling Green Church, are a diverse family devoted to the Bible on a mission to love God, love people, and see this world changed for Jesus. If that's something you're interested in joining and becoming a part of, please leave a comment below or connect with us on our website or on Facebook. Our website is thebowlinggreen.church. We'd love to connect with you and passionately pursue Jesus together. Thank you so much for worshiping with us, and we look forward to meeting you.